Welcome, dear family, to another heartfelt story here on Vintage Mike Tales. This emotional and heartwarming tale will remind us that even in the darkest times, love can shine through. Prepare your hearts for tears, smiles, and a story that celebrates life, love, and the legacies we leave behind. The sharp scent of antiseptic still clung to Vera, Clinton's memory as she adjusted the scarf around her neck. She hated hospitals, their sterile whiteness. The beeping machines, the dull shuffle of tired shoes across polished floors. Yet her life had been tethered to them for 2 years, ever since she heard the word that had shattered her carefully constructed world, leukemia. She wasn't dying, not yet. Her doctors called it minor leukemia, a manageable phase, but the word itself had carved a hollow into her chest. She couldn't think of herself without seeing the label stamped across, her body like a scarlet letter, cancer patient. That evening she sat stiffly in the passenger seat of her best friend's car, staring out at the city lights as they blurred past. "You're sulking again," Layla teased gently, breaking the silence. Her dark curls spilled over her shoulders, and her hands gripped the steering wheel with a confidence Vera envied. "I'm not sulking," Vera muttered, though she clearly was. "Yes, you are. You're chewing on your lip so hard I can practically hear it. Just give it a try, okay? Layla, you know how I feel about this. A cancer support group, really? I don't want to sit in a circle with strangers and announce that I'm sick." Layla's eyes softened. "You don't have to announce anything. Just listen. You've been carrying this all alone. Vera, you don't let anyone in, not even me, not fully. Maybe hearing other voices will remind you you're not broken, not alone." Vera swallowed hard, guilt and love twisting together in her chest. Layla had been her anchor since childhood, her steady friend, her chosen sister. She couldn't deny that her best friend was only trying to help. "All right," Vera said finally, "I'll go, but I'm not promising to talk." Layla grinned. "Fair enough. Just be there. That's all I ask." The community center smelled faintly of coffee and lemon-scented cleaner. Chairs were arranged in a wide circle, and a pot of tea sat steaming on a side table. The atmosphere was softer than Vera expected, less clinical, more human. People trickled in, each carrying stories in the way they moved. The slow gait of someone weakened by treatment, the nervous twitch of fingers searching for something to hold, the hopeful eyes of caregivers desperate for hope. Vera sat close to the door, hands folded tightly in her lap. She tried to appear invisible. That's when he walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, with sandy hair cropped short and a smile that seemed almost too warm for the room. Darlington's presence filled the space with something unspoken. His eyes scanned the circle as though searching for someone. When they landed on her, Vera felt her chest tighten, not in the way cancer did, but in something else entirely. He sat across from her, nodding at a few people who greeted him like an old friend. Clearly he'd been here before. The meeting began with introductions. Vera barely listened, her mind drifting. She hated this already. Why had she agreed? Then Darlington's voice broke into her thoughts. Strong, steady, laced with kindness. "I'm Darlington," he said, 30 years old. "I'm in remission from lymphoma. I come here because, well, when I was fighting, I didn't think I could make it through. And I realized what kept me alive wasn't just medicine. It was people. People who sat beside me in the dark. So I'm here now, for anyone who needs a reminder that the dark doesn't last forever." The group murmured in appreciation. Vera kept her eyes down, her throat thick. When it was her turn, she shook her head. "Pass," she whispered. No one pressured her, not even him. After the session, she slipped toward the door, desperate to escape. But a voice followed her. "You don't like groups much, huh?" She froze. Turning, she found Darlington standing there, hands tucked into his pockets, that easy smile still on his lips. "Not really," she admitted, pulling her scarf tighter. "I only came because my best friend dragged me here." "Smart friend," he said. "Sometimes it takes someone else to push us where we need to be." Vera arched a brow. "You don't even know me." "No," Darlington agreed. "But I know the look, the one that says you've been carrying too much by yourself. I used to wear it every day." His honesty disarmed her. She wanted to retort, to push him away, but instead, words slipped out that she hadn't planned. "I don't want to be pitied." He shook his head softly. "Neither did I, and I don't pity you. But I get it, the fear, the anger, the loneliness. You don't have to say anything. Just know I see you." Something shifted inside her. a small crack in the armor she had built so carefully. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. He shrugged, his eyes kind. "Because someone once cared enough for me, and it saved me." They ended up talking by the coffee machine for nearly an hour after everyone else left. Vera found herself admitting small things she hadn't spoken aloud before, that she hated the word patient, that she dreamed of one day being a mother, that sometimes she lay awake at night convinced her life would end before it truly began. Darlington didn't flinch. He listened, really listened, nodding, encouraging her to keep going. And then he told her his story. How at 28 he had been diagnosed with lymphoma. How the treatments had nearly broken him. How he had lost friends who didn't know how to stay, and nights when he thought he'd never see another sunrise. But also how remission had taught him to cherish every breath, every moment, every fragile heartbeat of life. "You don't have to be fearless," he said softly. "You just have to keep choosing to live. Even when it's hard." Vera stared at him, something tightening in her throat. "I don't even know how to do that anymore," she admitted. "Then let me remind you," he said. That night, as Layla drove her home, Vera sat quietly, staring out at the city skyline glowing against the night. "Well?" Layla asked, glancing at her. Vera hesitated, then whispered, "I met someone." Layla's brows rose. "At the support group?" "Yes." She allowed herself the smallest of smiles. "And I think he understands me, more than anyone has in a long time." Layla's eyes softened with relief. "Good. Maybe you'll finally let someone else in. Vera, you deserve that." Vera pressed her forehead to the glass, the memory of Darlington's smile lingering in her mind. For the first time in months, she felt something stir inside her chest, something that wasn't fear, wasn't despair. It was hope. That night, sleep eluded her. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word he had said. She thought about his eyes when he had spoken of survival, about the warmth in his tone when he promised she didn't have to be alone. And for the first time since her diagnosis, Vera allowed herself to imagine a future, fragile, uncertain, but glowing faintly on the horizon. A future where she wasn't just a patient, a future where she could be loved. And she whispered into the darkness, almost like a prayer, "Please let me have that chance." The next few weeks blurred into a rhythm Vera had not expected. She told herself she would only attend one support group session, but somehow she found herself returning. Part of it was Layla's insistence, but a larger part was Darlington. He didn't hover, he didn't push, but every time she walked in he was there, his warm smile steadying her, as though she was standing on shaking ground. He had a way of making her feel seen, without demanding anything in return. Vera wasn't used to that. One evening after the group ended, as the last few people trickled out of the room, Darlington lingered by the doorway and asked if she wanted to grab a coffee. The old Vera, the cautious, guarded one, would have said no. But the Vera sitting in that circle now felt a flutter in her chest, like the beginning of something she didn't yet dare name. "Sure," she heard herself say. The cafe down the street was small and cozy, with wooden tables and mismatched chairs. Vera cupped her hands around a warm mug, watching the steam curl upward. She was nervous, though she didn't want to admit it. Darlington leaned back in his chair, studying her with quiet curiosity, and asked why she didn't talk much during the meetings. She shrugged, avoiding his eyes, because she didn't want to be defined by her illness. If she started talking about it, that's all people would see. She wanted to be more than that. "You are more than that," he said firmly, and the certainty in his voice startled her. She looked up, meeting his gaze, and told him he spoke as though he knew her. "I'm starting to," he replied softly. And what he saw was someone strong, someone who still showed up even when it hurt. That wasn't weakness, it was courage. Her chest tightened. For so long she had heard words of pity, sympathy, sorrow, but never this, never admiration. She asked why he cared so much. His lips curved into a gentle smile as he explained that he remembered being where she was, feeling like the world was slipping away, like no one understood. If he could remind her she wasn't alone, then maybe all that pain he went through meant something. Something inside her softened, though she tried to resist it. She sipped her coffee, staring at him over the rim of her cup, and his sincerity disarmed her. For the first time in years, she felt the weight on her shoulders lighten. Their friendship blossomed quickly. Darlington began accompanying her to checkups. He didn't flinch at the sterile smell of hospitals or the long hours of waiting. Instead, he made her laugh, telling stories about the ridiculous things he did during his treatment, like shaving his head before the chemo could take his hair only to realize he looked terrible bald. Vera found herself laughing so hard one day in the oncology wing that a nurse had to peek in and remind them. It was a hospital. At night, when her fears crept in, she sometimes found herself dialing his number. He never seemed bothered, no matter how late it was. He would talk her through her anxiety, grounding her with stories of survival and hope. And slowly, without meaning to, Vera's heart began to lean toward him. One evening, the city was hushed under a soft drizzle. Darlington offered to drive her home from a late appointment, but instead of heading straight to her apartment, he turned toward the river. "Where are we going?" she asked, raising a brow. "You'll see." They pulled up at a quiet park overlooking the water. The rain had eased into a mist, and the city lights shimmered across the ripples of the river. They walked in silence for a while, the cool air wrapping around them. Finally, Darlington stopped under a street lamp, shoving his hands into his pockets, and asked if he could tell her something. Vera nodded cautiously. He confessed that he had been terrified of remission. People thought once you survived cancer, it was over. But the truth was, you were never the same. You were always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it was lonely because everyone else moved on while you were still carrying the scars. Vera's throat tightened. She knew that feeling. Every day she wondered if it would come back stronger, if she would wake up tomorrow and find out her time was up. Their eyes locked, a silent understanding passing between them. Darlington continued, saying he didn't want to waste any more time pretending life was guaranteed. He cared about her more than he expected to, and though he knew it was soon and she was scared, he couldn't keep pretending he wasn't falling in love with her. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. Love. The word felt too heavy, too dangerous. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You don't want this. You don't want me. I'm sick, Darlington. I can't give you a normal life. I might not even have a life to give." He stepped closer, rain dampening his hair, his eyes steady. "Do you think I don't know that? Do you think I care? I'd rather love you for a short while than spend a lifetime, wondering what it would have been like." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please don't. Don't tie yourself to someone who might not be here tomorrow. Forget me, Darlington. Live your life. You deserve someone whole." He reached out, gently brushing away the tear that escaped down her cheek. "You are whole, Vera. You're just hurting. And no matter how much time we have, I want to spend it with you." She tried to resist him. For days afterward, she pulled back, cancelling calls, avoiding the support group. But Darlington was patient. He sent little notes, left voicemails, showed up at her door with soup when he knew she hadn't eaten. Slowly, the walls she had built around her heart began to crumble. And one night, sitting on her couch while Sonia slept in her imagination, for Vera always dreamed of her future daughter, even before she was real. She realized she couldn't keep pushing him away. "Okay," she whispered into the quiet, looking into his eyes. "Okay, I'll stop running." Darlington's smile lit up the room. He took her hand, kissed it gently, and in that simple gesture, Vera felt something she had thought was forever lost, hope wrapped in love. The months that followed were a whirlwind of joy Vera had not thought possible. Their love deepened, steady and strong. Layla, ever the supportive friend, teased Vera often about how she glowed when Darlington was around. Their wedding was simple and intimate, just a small gathering at a quiet chapel. Vera wore a cream-colored dress that hugged her curves, her scarf replaced by a delicate veil. Darlington couldn't take his eyes off her as he whispered his vows. Layla stood beside her as maid of honor, tears streaming down her cheeks as she watched her best friend embrace happiness despite the storm cloud of illness that always lingered. And then, 1 year later, Vera cradled their newborn daughter in her arms, Sonia. Her name tasted like sunlight and survival, like the fulfillment of two impossible dreams, to find love and to leave behind a legacy. As Darlington leaned over the hospital bed, pressing a kiss to both Vera's forehead and Sonia's tiny one, Vera's tears spilled freely. She had everything she had ever wished for: love, family, and hope. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in tomorrow. The first sign was so small that Vera almost ignored it. A wave of fatigue that settled into her bones, heavier than usual. She chalked it up to motherhood. Late nights with Sonia, early mornings, and the endless demands of caring for a baby. But then came the bruises, dark ugly patches blooming across her skin with no explanation. One morning, as she pulled her blouse over her head, Darlington froze and asked too calmly what that mark was. She looked down at the spreading blotch across her ribs and insisted it was nothing, probably just a bump from carrying Sonia. But the look in his eyes told her he didn't believe it. A week later, sitting in the sterile chill of the oncology ward, Vera's worst fear returned. The doctor's lips moved slowly. The words weighted and cruel. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The world tilted, the walls closed in, and her heart thundered in her chest, as if trying to outrun the truth. Darlington's hand gripped hers so tightly it almost hurt, but his voice stayed steady as he asked about the plan, the next step. Vera couldn't speak, she couldn't breathe. All she could hear was the echo of her own fear. It's back. Feel it stronger. It's going to take me. That night, after Sonia had fallen asleep in her crib, Vera sat on the living room floor with her knees pulled to her chest. The apartment was dim except for the glow of the nightlight. Darlington insisted they leave on for Sonia. She didn't notice him until he sat beside her. He didn't speak, didn't push. He simply wrapped his arm around her, pulling her into his chest. "I'm so scared," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know," he murmured into her hair, "but we'll fight it just like before." Her tears spilled onto his shirt as she choked out, what if she didn't win this time? What if Sonia never remembered her? Darlington's arms tightened around her as he swore. Sonia would remember, because he would make sure she knew every detail. Her laugh, her smile, the way she sang when she cried. And besides, she wasn't done fighting yet. She was still here, and as long as she was here, there was hope. Vera shook her head, guilt crushing her chest, and told him he deserved someone healthy, someone who could grow old with him, not someone whose time was running out. His voice broke then, but his words were firm. "Stop. Don't you dare tell me I deserve anyone else. You are my wife. You are the love of my life. And if all I get is this time with you, then it's enough. Do you hear me? It's enough." Days blurred into weeks of treatments, hospital visits, and exhaustion. Vera forced herself to smile for Sonia, to hold her close and breathe, in her baby scent as though it might keep her tethered to life. But late at night, when the world was quiet, fear gnawed at her. She began to think about the future, Darlington's future, Sonia's future without her in it. One evening, while Darlington was out picking up medicine, Vera sat with Layla at the kitchen table. Her best friend's presence was as steady as it had always been. "Layla," Vera began softly, staring down at her trembling hands. "Yes, love," Layla answered. "If I don't make it," Vera forced the words out, "promise me you'll help Darlington raise Sonia. Promise me she'll have you. Your love, your strength, if I'm gone." Layla's eyes filled instantly as she told her not to talk like that she was going to make it. But Vera begged her, pleading that Sonia deserved stability, and Layla had always been more than a friend. She was a sister. Who else could she ask? Layla reached across the table, gripping her hands tightly and promising she would always be there for Sonia. Vera didn't even have to ask. But she insisted Vera would still be there too. She had to believe that. A few nights later, Vera's thoughts turned to something even harder to say. She waited until Sonia was asleep, until Darlington had finally drifted into restless slumber beside her. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, rehearsing words that tasted like ash. Finally, she turned to him, shaking him gently awake. "Darling," her voice trembled. He blinked at her, instantly alert when he saw the tears in her eyes, asking what was wrong. She swallowed hard and begged him to promise her something. "Anything," he said. "If I don't make it," she whispered. "Promise me you'll take care of Sonia. Promise me you'll tell her about me, and promise me you'll love again." Darlington sat up, his face etched with pain, refusing. "No, don't say that. Don't ask me to imagine a world without you. Please," Vera begged. "I need to know you'll be okay, that Sonia will have a mother figure, that you won't spend the rest of your life grieving me." His hands cupped her face, his forehead pressed to hers. "You are asking me to do the impossible. I'm asking you to live," she whispered, "for both of us." His tears fell hot against her cheeks as he said he couldn't promise that. He couldn't promise to stop loving her. "You don't have to stop loving me," she said through a breaking voice. "Just promise you'll open your heart again when you're ready. After a long silence, Darlington whispered that if that was what she needed from him, then he promised, but God help him. He would never stop being hers. The request weighed heavily on Vera, but one final plea burned in her chest, one she could only ask of Layla. It was late one evening when Layla came over with groceries and folded laundry while Darlington bathed. Sonia. Vera sat in the living room, her body weak but her mind sharp. "Layla," she whispered when they were alone. "Yes," Layla replied. "If I'm gone, I want you to marry Darlington one day." Layla's eyes widened in horror as she refused, but Vera insisted, tears streaming, that she was the only one she trusted to love. Him the way he deserved, and to love Sonia like her own. Layla shook her head furiously through tears, saying it wasn't fair, that Darlington loved Vera, not her. "I know," Vera whispered, clutching her hand, "but when I'm gone, someone will have to hold him together. Someone will have to give Sonia the love she'll miss from me. Who else could I trust with the two people I love most?" Layla pressed her forehead against Vera's, sobbing that she couldn't promise. She couldn't. "Please," Vera begged desperately. "If you love me, promise me." Layla's chest heaved with silent sobs, but finally she whispered, "I promise. If it comes to that, I'll take care of them both." Relief and heartbreak mingled in Vera's chest as she squeezed Layla's hand with the last of her strength. "Thank you," she whispered. "Now I can rest easier." That night, long after everyone had gone to bed, Vera stood in the doorway of Sonia's nursery. The baby's chest rose and fell in gentle rhythm. Her tiny hand curled against her cheek. Vera pressed her palm against the crib rail, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Two things I wanted in this life," she whispered into the quiet. "To find love and to leave behind a piece of me." Her gaze lingered on her daughter, then shifted to where Darlington's shadow fell across the hallway as he moved in their bedroom. And now both wishes have come true. But even as she whispered it, fear gnawed at her heart, because wishes, she knew, did not stop death. And death was coming closer. The autumn air outside was crisp, carrying the scent of falling leaves. From her bed, Vera could hear the faint laughter of children playing in the courtyard below. She closed her eyes, wishing for a moment she could join them, just to feel the sun on her face and Sonia's tiny hand in hers as they ran through the grass together. But her body was weak and the strength she once clung to had been stripped away piece by piece. Darlington sat by her bedside, his hand clasping hers as though letting go might mean losing her altogether. His eyes, once so full of light, were rimmed with exhaustion. Yet when he looked at her, his love never wavered. Vera reached for his cheek, her hand trembling, and told him she had one more wish. His breath caught as he said anything. "Love, you know I'd do anything." She swallowed hard, tears stinging her eyes, and told him she wanted a pre-funeral. He stared at her, stunned, and asked what. She explained she didn't want to leave this world, without hearing what people had to say, that funerals were always for the ones left behind. But she wanted hers to be for her while she was still here to listen, to hear their love, their memories, and to tell them goodbye herself. Darlington shook his head, his voice breaking as he said he couldn't. It was too painful. "Please," she whispered, squeezing his hand weakly. "It's my last wish." His chest heaved with silent sobs as he nodded and agreed. "Okay, my love, we'll do it your way." The gathering was small and intimate, family. A few friends from the support group, neighbors who had shared kind words during her illness. The community hall was decorated with soft flowers and candles, not to mourn but to create warmth as Vera had requested. She was brought in a wheelchair, Sonia cradled in her lap, her daughter's small hand clutching her dress. Vera's body trembled from the effort, but her eyes glowed with quiet determination. The room fell silent when she entered. People rose to their feet not out of pity but respect. Darlington guided her to the front, his hand never leaving hers. Layla stood close, her eyes already brimming with tears. When everyone settled, Vera nodded to her husband and whispered for him to go first. Darlington's hands shook as he took the small podium. He looked out at the faces, then down at Vera, and his voice trembled with grief and love, as he asked how you say goodbye to the love of your life while she's still here. His voice cracked as he told them he met Vera when she was hiding behind walls of fear and pain, but even then she shone brighter than anyone he had ever known, that she taught him how to laugh again, how to hope, and that she gave him the greatest gift of all, their daughter, Sonia. His tears spilled freely as he told her she had been his home, his strength, his reason, and if he could trade places with her, he would. But since he couldn't, he promised to keep Sonia safe, to tell her every day about the love her mother carried in her heart. And though he would miss her every moment, he would carry her with him until his last breath. The room was silent except for quiet sobs as Vera reached out, touching his hand and whispering through her tears that she loved him. Next it was Layla's turn. She stood shakily, clutching a piece of paper but unable to read from it, tossing it aside with a voice raw from emotion. She said Vera had been her best friend since they were children, that they shared secrets, laughter, heartbreaks, and that she had been her sister long before they ever used the word out loud. Watching her fight this illness, she confessed, had been the hardest thing she had ever faced. But even in pain, Vera had shown her what true strength looked like. She had faced death with grace and love, leaving imprints on all their hearts. She turned to Vera, tears streaming, telling her she had always been her anchor, and that she didn't know how to live in a world without her. But she promised Sonia would never feel the absence of her mother's love. She would make sure she grew up knowing her mother was extraordinary. Vera reached out her trembling hand and Layla rushed forward, clutching it tightly as they cried together. Finally, Vera herself spoke. The room grew still as Darlington helped her to the microphone. Her voice was soft but steady, carried by sheer will, as she thanked everyone for being there and for walking this journey with her. She said cancer had been cruel, but it had also shown her the beauty of life, giving her moments she might never have appreciated otherwise. Laughter in hospital halls, love stronger than fear, and the miracle of holding her daughter in her arms. Her lips trembled, but she pressed on, saying she didn't want them to see her passing as an end, but as a continuation. She would live in Sonia's smile, in Darlington's love, in the memories they all created together. And she was grateful, so deeply grateful, for the time she had been given. She paused, gathering strength, and told them if they took anything from her life, let it be this: love fiercely, forgive quickly, and cherish every day, because tomorrow is never promised. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down every face in the room. Vera leaned back exhausted, but her heart felt full. That night, after everyone had gone, the apartment was quiet. Vera lay in bed, her body frail but her spirit peaceful. Sonia slept in the crib beside her, her tiny breaths filling the room. Darlington sat on one side, holding her hand. Layla sat on the other, with her own hand clasping tightly around Vera's. Vera's eyes moved between them. Her husband, the love of her life, and her best friend, her sister in all but blood. Together, they had carried her through this journey. She gathered the last of her strength and told Darlington she loved him, her voice breaking, thanking him for giving her everything she ever dreamed of. His tears fell freely as he told her he loved her too, more than life itself. Turning to Layla, Vera squeezed her hand weakly and asked her to take care of them, to promise again. Layla's sobs shook her body as she whispered she promised. With both their hands in hers, Vera smiled faintly and said this was how she wanted to go, holding the two people who kept her alive. Her breath grew slower, softer, and she whispered one final "I love you" before her eyes closed. And at dawn, with the light of a new day brushing across the curtains, Vera slipped away quietly, peaceful, loved and forever remembered. The room was heavy with silence when Darlington finally lifted Sonia from her crib. He held her close, pressing his lips to her tiny head, his tears dampening her hair. Layla stood beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder, her own tears falling silently. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. Between them, they carried the promise they had made to Vera. Her love would live on. In Sonia's laughter, in Darlington's devotion, in Layla's steadfast care. And though grief wrapped itself around them, they knew one thing with certainty: Vera's wishes had been fulfilled. She had found love, she had left a legacy, and she would never ever be forgotten. May Vera's journey remind us that, even in the face of illness and heartbreak, love leaves an enduring legacy, and every act of care, every shared moment, becomes a treasure beyond measure. To my families and future family listening, thank you for holding these characters in your hearts as they navigate life, loss, and the power of love. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Stay tuned for part 2, where their story continues, showing the power of healing, family and love that endures, with a heart full of gratitude. Vintage Mike Tales.